When I have finished the meeting or over? Over or remaining.
So the ISO you give us is Exchange ISO?
Yes, it is Exchange ISO. Just like you had vCenter ISO, so this is Exchange ISO. It works on top of Windows, so you have to have Windows environment ready and then we'll start configuring it. Before configuration, we need to understand it. Okay, so guys, let's start. Ta-da! What? For installation, I mean, you need to just let it go. Huh?
So I just did my DCO and can I just sign it over here or do I have to go to the user and then type in this?
No, here. Okay. So click here. So always when you have a domain name in front of a machine name, your domain name, you have to sign in here. Don't have to go anywhere else. Now, just take basic snapshot. Yes. I'm gonna start. Okay, guys, welcome to Exchange 20 time training. Yay, excellent. Yay, no. Guys, Exchange 2010, Exchange 2010, or Exchange overall. It is an emailing system. It's an enterprise emailing system. All companies are using it. You will find references for Exchange requirement in many jobs in many places. So far, what we have covered is you have covered the basic infrastructure. You have covered VMware infrastructure. You have seen the complexity of SCCM, and now we're on Exchange. In all of them, few things are common. The few things that are common is that they all have Active Directory. Everywhere it starts from Active Directory. Everywhere it starts from the basic network. Everywhere it starts from they need DNS. So you have basic Active Directory, DNS, on top of which you start building your environment. So in all of these networks, in all of these companies, you have to have a very good understanding of the underlying network. Not on the hardware layer, but on the system layer. On system layer, your very first stop is Active Directory. On top of Active Directory, you have DNS, then DHCP, then WDS, then WSUS, and then on top of that, this is your basic layer. So your basic layer is this. AD, DNS, DHCP, WDS, WSUS, and all that. Now, on top of this, people become specialists of certain technologies. So you can become a specialist on, let's say, another layer. So here you have different layers. Now, few years back, 6 years back, if you were this here and you're certified, you know this technology, you would find jobs. But nowadays, no. This is now a standard, a basic standard that everybody has to be aware of. Now on this, you can become maybe SCCM expert. Then you can become a VMware expert on this. And Citrix or Exchange, or then you have DBA. You can become DBA, you can become programmer, you can. So the thing here is the more technologies you have under your belt, the better it is. Because then you'll be asked from many different places. You can be called in from many different locations. You can become. So the main idea here is, the main focus here is, guys, many people ask me that which area is more stronger, on which area you will find job. Is it a VMware? Is it Citrix? So guys, what I've seen in the last 2 years, it has been, the trend is now kind of jack of all trades. So you need to know. You don't know that opportunity comes from which side and who will give you a call. Some students who were really prepared in VMware, thinking, oh, I'm going to become VMware, they are now Citrix specialists. Some people who never even thought of going into SCCM, now they are SCCM SMEs. They are earning $60, $70 per hour. So you might be called from anywhere. So which means you need to have the basics of everything. And then sky's the limit. The more you understand the technology, you do just one project in any of them. Just one project in the real environment, that takes you completely to a different level. But guys, the question here is, how can you be called in to a project of a certain technology? At least you have to have the basics of these. So basics that you're learning here is very important. Why? Because of this, you will be called in maybe as a first level support, maybe as just a supporting role within that team. Once you go through this one project, this will take you completely to a different level. Then you will be definitely kind of moving into that. And maybe down the line, after 1.5 year or 2 year working with SCCM or VMware, you might be working on SCCM. You might be working on Citrix. So there is a huge advantage in getting all this. Question? You had a question?
You're saying that you cannot be an expert of all the technologies at once.
Yes. You cannot be an expert. You cannot be an expert. But hold on.
So what we have done, we can't say that we are adept in every technology. We know the technology, but we haven't gone into that depth.
Oh, you will never be. No training in the world can take you to the right within the depth. So the easiest way in is to understand the technology and start working on it. For example, it took me 15 years to actually become an expert of Exchange. So I worked on many different versions. Active Directory, many different versions. So for 6 years in VMware, worked on many different. So I mean, it all depends on your real experience. But at least you're starting from somewhere, right? So for that reason, the labs, the understanding that we are gaining here is very important. Exchange. Now, guys, Exchange. Since this is a workshop, I'm going to go through a lot of things that are not in the books. I'm going to give you references of projects. I'm going to give you basic. So definitely there are. I have to go through the text as well. But mostly it is. I'm going to give you labs every week, and every week you need to finish them. Because if you don't, then you won't be able to catch up. Just like SCCM. SCCM was very complicated. I used to think that Exchange is very complicated, but no, guys. SCCM is is at the moment the most complicated product there is in Microsoft lines in Microsoft products. Exchange has become now simpler as compared to SCCM. So let's start. So in this training, there are 7 modules that I want to cover. First, starting with first one, which is deploying Exchange 2012. Second one, configuring mailbox role. Third one, recipient object. Fourth one, client access role. Fifth one. So basically, this is right starting from here. You have deployment of Exchange. So here we're going to go through all the introduction of Exchange. What is Exchange? Why Exchange? How many companies are using Exchange? How does it connect to Active Directory? So we need to have that basic understanding. Because if you don't have basic understanding, guys, I believe you cannot reverse engineer a product. In order to reverse engineer a product, you need to have a very good understanding from root level and going above. So this first module will take you from very, very basic to a level where we can start understanding working with Exchange. Today's objective is that we should be able to finish with Exchange installation and test our Exchange working in this environment. And then the next one is just like in Active Directory, there are many roles. In Windows Server, there are many roles. Are there roles in Windows servers? I don't hear you guys. So are there roles? Yes. So there are many roles. For example, ADDS role, DNS role, DHCP role, WDS role, chicken role. So chicken role is not. So guys, here you have roles in Exchange in 2000 in 2008, 2012, 2003. At the same time, you have seen roles in Exchange SCCM as well. In SCCM, there were mandatory roles, there were optional roles. Then mandatory roles that are must for any SCCM installation, right? Those were your primary site server, your primary database server, your SCCM had roles as well. At the same time, you had roles in VMware as well. In VMware, there is ESXi host. Then there is vCenter. Then vCenter has a database, and then there are BOM, there is the VDR, and there are many other things in VM. Guys, just like that, Exchange has roles too, and Exchange has 5 roles. 5 roles. We just need to understand actually 3 of them to the basic, but we're gonna go through all 5 of them. So most of the Exchange are working on 3 of those roles, and and I'm going to give you a comparison of the latest Exchange as well. The latest Exchange is Exchange 2013, which is moving towards Exchange 2016. And I'm going to give you a history of Exchange as well, just like Active Directory history, just like VMware history, just like SCCM history, newer product. So I'm going to give you those as well. So guys, what I mean to say here is take as much notes as possible. You won't find them in one place in a book. Our main idea here is to learn 90% from sitting here in the class. If you're able to learn and concentrate and start writing notes and taking notes, whatever is here, whatever we are discussing, you don't need to remember many things outside. Okay. So first chapter is Introduction to Exchange. Second chapter is the first role in Exchange, and I'm going to go into more detail. For this, there is a full chapter on mailbox server role. So mailbox server role is sitting here. So this is why this server is MB. MB stands for mailbox server role, and this is your complete module 2. What is a mailbox server role? How does it work? What are the problems, issues you will face in the real environment in this role? Then your third is CAS server role. This is your CAS, client access server. This is your third module, and this is one of the roles in Exchange. Have you ever heard of CAS anywhere else?
Yep.
Yes.
Well,
SCCM.
SCCM. SCCM had CAS too, and that is
A higher level of
Central Administration Site. That was the highest level of Exchange, SCCM, In SCCM, that is only used for reporting and administration purposes. Here, it is also CAS, but CAS here stands for Client Access Server. This is one of the roles. So one role is mailbox server role, second role is CAS server role, and third role is hub transport server, message transport. This is the third role. This is the third role, hub transport server role. So we're going to go through all these roles. There are chapters on this. Now, and once these roles are all installed, configured, working, then we're going to move on to high availability in Exchange, which is a completely clustered technology. We're going to go through clustering here. And then last chapter would be upgradation from different levels of Exchange to a newer level. Well, what are those? It's the general discussion. Now, so these are the chapters. This is our first lab. Your first lab is right here, and your first lab is all recorded. It's uploaded, so you can go through that lab as well. Hub stands for I don't know. I've never gone into hub, but it is called hub transport role. I mean, I think this hub comes from the same concept of hub that we used to have before. A hub, a connection point for many different computers. Remember hub before switches? There used to be hubs. So I think this hub comes from that hub. It's a hub. It's a central point from where all communication happens. Okay. So module 1. Guys, in module 1, we're going to talk about Exchange 2010 requirement. Then we're going to see what is required to install Exchange 2010, what is how to complete the installation. And in the first lesson, we're going to go through reviewing Active Directory components, discussion, Active Directory reviewing, because Exchange, guys, heavily depends on Active Directory. Exchange heavily depends on Active Directory. Without Active Directory, Exchange cannot exist. There is no Exchange won't work without Active Directory. So there is a huge requirement in Active Directory, and actually Exchange stores a lot of information inside Active Directory. So your NTDS file in Active Directory stores a lot of Exchange information there. Now here, so in this lesson, we're going to go through reviewing Active Directory components. Then we're going to discuss Active Directory implementation, reviewing Active Directory partitions, how Exchange 2010 uses ADDS, and reviewing requirements and integration of Active Directory and Exchange Server. Now, the first thing that we need to jump into while understanding Exchange is the understanding of Active Directory. Now, all of these things that are written here on this slide, I think we're all already introduced to this. I'm quickly going to overview this information because this is required for Exchange. So, a domain. A domain is represented by a triangle in all technical diagrams. Wherever you go, wherever you would see technical diagrams, you would see this diagram, this triangle as a domain. And this is acting as domain. And our domain is here, scanf.pri. Our domain is scanf.pri. In this domain, we have only one domain. So one DC actually. So this is one DC, and this DC is actually this server. So this DC is this server. Now within this DC, guys, as we know that Active Directory is divided into two types of structures. There is logical structure, there is physical structure. Physical structure and logical structure. So if we can make it here, so you have AD divided into physical structure and logical structure. Physical structure and logical structure. And here physical structure, it has two parts here, which is servers and sites. Servers and sites. And which is basically servers are domain controllers and sites are referred to physical locations where Active Directory is. And logical structure, it starts from forest and then tree and then domain, and then OU, and then objects, and then attributes. And then attributes. So guys.
In the logical structure, you just say first three elements are found. First three, you just say forest tree and.
No, I mean, yes, it might be fine, but we need to understand this in this manner. Exactly, this is how Microsoft wants us to remember the complete logical structure. Although you can refer to it as, okay, forest tree domain is fine, but then these are logical components too. Okay, so now Active Directory components are these: domain, forest, trust, domain controller, global catalog, sites, and replication. And how do you know, how do you remember this, and how do you, where do they exist? So once you have a domain controller, so this is my domain controller now. This is my domain controller, and to start with, it was just a server. It was just a server, 2008 or 2012 or 2003. And then what you did, you installed ADDS role inside. ADDS role. As soon as you installed this role, it became what? A DC, a domain controller. And then as soon as it became a DC, then what you did actually, you installed, when ADDS role was added and DC promo was run, an NTDS, a database is created inside that is known as NTDS. Now this NTDS is the main Active Directory database. It has 5 partitions and 5 FSMO roles. It has 5 partitions and 5 FSMO roles. FSMO stands for Flexible Single Master Operation. Flexible Single Master Operation. Flexible Single Master Operation. Why am I saying this? Almost all Active Directory interview, they will ask you about this. Almost all of them. So it is a single master, flexible single master operation. Now there are 5 roles, starting with first one, schema master. And here you also have its partition, which is schema partition. Here it is called master, schema master, and here it is just called partition. Now, what is the main purpose of partition as compared to FSMO roles? Guys, partitions store information. This is where schema information is stored. Whereas this is what privileges this DC has. This DC has the privilege of being a schema master. So schema master, if on this DC you can make changes to this part of the Active Directory. So basically, what you know as partitions, these are storage inside NTDS. So if you look at NTDS in this manner, this is your NTDS. And NTDS is actually, I mean, there was one way of storing information on this. There was one way of storing information on this. Qasim? Okay. So,
I'm listening.
You're listening? What was my last sentence?
What?
What was my last sentence?
What are you doing?
Huh? Okay, before that. Yes, so this is what I'm saying, guys. I mean, you might think that this is very basic information and you all remember this. No, guys, this is very, very important because it relates to Exchange. So I want you to have a very good understanding of this. Now, we need to understand what is partitions here because Exchange stores a lot of information in partitions. So you must remember that. And most of the time when you need to troubleshoot Exchange, you will go back to the deep down in Active Directory. You will be asked by Microsoft, so you will call Microsoft, oh, I have this problem with Exchange. And they would ask you, okay, you need to go into partitions, open ADSI edit, go into this partition and check these attributes and tell me what it is. And if you don't understand these partitions, you won't be able to just follow them. So here, partitions, Active Directory, NTDS file has 5 partitions, 5 FSMO roles. How many partitions? 5. And how many FSMO roles? 5 FSMO. Now partition, guys, always remember, partition is just a place where you store information. Now, there might have been 2 ways to store information in this. One way was just to randomly store everything. So you have user accounts in here, you have OUs here, you have permissions here, you have Active Directory structure here. So it could have been random. It could have been. So, but just to make it easier to organize and for replication, what Microsoft did, Microsoft actually created 5 partitions in this. So they said, okay, this partition is only for schema data. And this partition is only for domain data, domain naming partition. And this is only for configuration data. So configuration goes here, your domain objects goes here, your schema information goes here. And then right here, it says this is only for applications. This is only for application. And this one is only for GC, global catalog. This is for GC. So partitions, guys, partitions are nothing but how you store data in NTDS. Can we change these partitions? No, we cannot change this. Can we change the type of data that goes into each partition? No, we cannot change this because Microsoft automatically designed this, and this is for actually speed. This is, remember that this is for replication speed. Now just think of this for a second. For example, if you have a 1 terabyte USB, which is this one, a 1 terabyte USB. If this USB is 1 terabyte and it's all scattered and you have to copy the complete terabyte, you just have to copy maybe 2 folders from this. But the only option you have is to clone the complete disk. Would that be easier, or would copying just 2 folders that you need would be easier? 2 folders, right? So in order to take advantage of this technique in not to transfer or copy everything from DC to DC, they made these partitions. Now, for example, the partitions are made for the purpose of replication speed. Now, if they would have not made these partitions, then every time two DCs replicate information, so this DC and this DC, they had to replicate complete NTDS from one place to another. Complete NTDS. Now, when they replicate information, they don't replicate the complete NTDS. What they do, they just replicate the part of partition that needs to be replicated. So this is why they have these different partitions. Now, you might be thinking, okay, maybe Active Directory and servers are very, very fast. They can replicate very, very fast. But guys, what about in large environment where you have 70 DCs replicating information throughout the country? So in doing that, if partitions would have not been there, then complete Active Directory data would be going through all 70 DCs across Canada. So for that reason, guys, these partitions are made for replication speed and accuracy. Replication speed. So without these partitions, I mean, this is again like another example that I use is a cabinet. A cabinets in your at home, in your closet. So in your closet, you can organize the items so that you can easily grab them, you can easily put it back. If randomly, it will be very, very difficult. So every time you have to just look. So guys, partitions are this. So your concept on partition should be very clear. So there are 5 partitions, and partitions are there to have better speed of replication. So here you have a better speed of replication. This is NTDS, all data randomly saved, and this is now not how it is saved. Guys, this was the case. This was the case in the days of NT4. In the very beginning. In the very beginning, this was NT4 like this. NT4.0, everything was saved in this manner. And that is why NT4, although NT4 worked for more than 3-4 years, and it was famous at that time, but then it has many, many issues as well. Just because of this, I mean, there were many other reasons, but just because of this reason, replication used to fail between many domain controllers. Why? Because it was transferring the complete file and it fails. Why would it fail? It failed due to sometimes network. Due to network is busy. Due to maybe lack of many things are there. So then when they started with first time in 2000, Windows Server 2000, they started Active Directory, they made these partitions. And throughout from that time till now, from 2003, 2008, 2012, going 2016, they're all these partitions. Active Directory is stored in these partitions. Now, the second important thing about partition is that this has different type of data stored in each partition. So schema. Schema is the topmost type of data that is stored in Active Directory. Basically, this is actually a blueprint diagram of your Active Directory. Now, a blueprint diagram meaning it has the complete architecture of Active Directory. Schema. What is stored in schema? So the next question is, what is stored here? What is stored here? What is stored here? And what is stored here? So the very first place is schema. Schema stores the definitions of objects and classes. It has the definitions of objects and classes. So it has the definitions of objects and classes. It has the definitions of objects and classes, which means anything goes wrong in this architecture would affect your complete Active Directory. So this is actually the main architecture of your Active Directory. This is why, guys. This is why this part of the Active Directory is hidden. It is not open to everyone. Number one, it is hidden. Number two, only schema admin can make these changes. Not even domain admin can make these changes. Not even enterprise admin can make these changes. The only person who can make these changes in this has to be schema admin. Why? Because this has the complete definition. So this structure is standing on schema. And any crack in this would completely take down Active Directory. So this is the main structure. You can say these are the main building blocks or main pillar of Active Directory, a central pillar of Active Directory. So schema. So for that reason, guys, we don't make changes to schema every time. And for that reason, no matter how big your forest is, guys, there is only one schema for that complete forest. So maybe in that complete forest there are 50 domains, but there is one schema. If there are maybe 2 domains, one schema. 1 domain, one schema. Because this is the main structure of your Active Directory. So the few things we need to remember about this. Number one, this partition is hidden. Number two, the only person who can make changes is schema admin. Now this partition, number three is that this partition is not changing every day. So maybe it might change maybe few times, maybe throughout the lifetime of Active Directory. So in Rogers, how long the Active Directory is working, or in Bell, how long the Active Directory is working? Maybe 15 years now. 15 years. Starting from NT4, they upgraded. So all companies came from NT4. Bigger companies. Smaller companies, they might have started anywhere here, but bigger companies, Bell, Rogers, all these, they are 15 years running. And how many times they made changes to schema? I can tell you maybe not more than 2 or 3 times. Not more than 2 or 3, or maybe maximum 5 times. Maximum in 15 years. So you don't make changes. So guys, why I am elaborating on schema? Because Exchange is one of those products that must make changes to schema. Exchange is one of those products. Once we install Exchange, it will open it will do a open heart surgery of Active Directory. So Exchange, when installs, in a running Active Directory, it will open schema, add Exchange attributes inside, and then close it. So Exchange does it. And which means that while doing an Exchange installation, you should be logged in with an account that is schema admin. Because when Exchange runs, Exchange will go into a schema, it will open schema, and it will add Exchange attributes. It will add the definitions of Exchange attributes. Because now what are the Exchange attributes? Exchange attributes are like your email address, your how big your mailbox is. So in Gmail, how big your mailbox is? Maybe nowadays 10 GB, or maybe even going more. So your size of the mailbox, your permissions on the mailbox, everything related to a mailbox, it must be stored in schema. So Exchange is one of the products that would, once it is installed the first time, it will go open schema and will make changes. Your question is, how much introduction we have in this? Do I get to see the schema? Do I get to see what changes? Yes, you will be able to see the changes, but we don't do anything. It is Exchange setup that automatically does that. Once you run the setup, what it does, it will automatically, during the part of the Exchange installation, it will go to Active Directory, it will open schema, add attributes, and will show it to us that, okay, this is done. And later on, we can verify that if it was able to do it successfully.
So we can say that these are default changes necessary to activate Exchange. These are default, I mentioned, the required Exchange.
Yes, it is. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yes, it is necessary. It is 100% necessary, mandatory. Okay. So first thing is schema. Now, since we are on schema topic, let's quickly see what is sitting on these others. So, for example, first one, schema has definitions here. Schema is the architecture. So schema is definitions here. It has the architecture. Second one is domain naming partition. This is called domain naming partition. Now, domain naming partition is the most frequently used partition. This partition has actually how many OUs are there, how many users are there, how many, what are the permissions, security, and everything. So every common thing that we do in Active Directory is actually done in domain naming partition.
It's stored in this partition or this?
It's stored in this partition. It's stored because this is all storage, right? This is all storage. So all the common objects that we work with Active Directory every day are stored in domain. So everything, so what is stored in domain naming partition? Your OUs, your users, your objects, your permission, your security, your everything. Yes?
So those partitions are isolated, they are not communicating with each other, right?
No, they are communicating with each other, but as a storage, they're isolated. 100% isolated. Within the same database though. Within the same database, it has its own cabinet, it has its own cabinet, it has it. So they are isolated. Now, the third one is configuration. Configuration is the one which has the structure of your Active Directory. This has the structure of, for example, this will store, this is a structure of AD. Basically, it is storing how many sites do you have. How many sites do you have? What are the site links between them? So everything, site links, everything that you do in Active Directory sites and services basically comes from this configuration. So configuration is how many domain controllers do you have in your network? How many sites do you have? What is their site links? What are their subnets? What is their cost? What is their cost and all that? All that site related information stored in configuration. So here goes your configuration. So configuration, yes.
What did you say the domain partition is?
Domain partition has OUs, users, their permissions. So everything common that you see in ADUC. So you can easily remember whatever you have in ADUC. ADUC is in this. And whatever you have in ADSS is in configuration. So in configuration. So this is, I mean, not necessarily these consoles are to access those partitions, but mostly everything in ADUC, it belongs to domain naming partition. Everything in configuration, it belongs, everything in ADSS, AD sites and services is in this. And then you have schema. Schema has its own console. We all know that. We all know that the schema cannot be accessed through this or this. Schema has its own console. Does it have its own console? Because it's hidden. Remember, we just said that a schema console is hidden. So that is schema admin console. So from that console you would access it. And here configuration. Configuration is the structure of Active Directory. How many locations are there? How many subnets are there, and all that. And then these are two kind of optional partitions. These are three must partitions. These are two optional partitions. Now, they used to be optional in the days of 2003. In the days of 2003, especially GC, Global Catalog, used to be optional. Nowadays, GC is mandatory. Nowadays, you will see GC on all DCs. So GC is mandatory. So here this is third-party applications. This stores some other applications. Stores info of other applications. And here it stores info of other applications.
Stores info third party.
You can't say third party because even other Microsoft application would store information in this. For example, the most common one that you can remember is DNS integrated. When DNS is integrated, then all DNS information is stored in this partition.
That's the application.
That's the application partition. Remember DNS integrated, DNS can be standard, DNS can be integrated. So DNS, if DNS is Active Directory integrated, it is actually storing partition, it is storing information in there. And then comes your GC. GC stores the partial information of all other domains. It stores partial info of all other domains.
If we have more than one domain, right?
If you have more than one domain, for sure. Partial information of all other domains. Where is the full information of this domain? Where is the full information of its own domain? It's actually in all these three. Full information is all these three. But the partial information of other domains is sitting in this. Now, if you don't have other domains, then there is no need for GC. If you have only one domain, GC is there, but it's not doing anything. So guys, this is partitions. We must remember partitions. And then comes FISMO. FISMO are also fine. Now, FISMO, which means FISMO, now schema, guys, schema partition sits on all the DCs. Schema partition sits on all DCs. Let's say I have these DCs. So basically I have these two DCs. I have these two DCs, schema is here and schema is here as well. Both have schema information. Good. But guys, only one of them can make changes to schema. Schema sits on all DCs, but only one DC throughout your domain can make changes to that schema, and that will be the person who holds this role. The DC that holds the role. So this is a DC, this is a DC. Only there is one schema master. Schema master. So schema master is the server that has the writable copy of schema. And all other DCs are read-only copy of schema. All other DCs you cannot make changes. Yes.
As you just mentioned, we have two DC, right?
Yes.
And we got a schema master on that. If we create a third DC, then create its own schema?
No, it will be using the same schema. It will be replicated to them. So let's say you make another DC, right? So the very first thing that happens when you create a DC, it will replicate everything that is in this database. So basically, all these 5 partition information goes into this as well. But the only person who can make, so it doesn't make its own schema. It will use the same schema that exists in Active Directory to answer your question. Okay, does that answer your question? No.
Okay, so let's actually we all know the FISMO schema and the other one domain name, right?
Yes.
These two are forest wide.
So
when we create another domain, right?
Yes, it will use the same schema of your parent domain. It does not create its own schema. Yes. That's your question, right? So as soon as you create a second domain right here, and it has a DC, right? It has the 3 forest-wide role, but schema it will be using as same as this. Yes. So schema won't be created again. Schema is just created once, and it will be used in all the forest. Now, guys, here, so you have schema master. Second one. What is the second one? It is domain naming master. Next one. Grid master, infrastructure master, and BDC. ADC. So these are all of the FISMO roles here. This is all of the partitions on this side. Guys, this is basics of Active Directory that you must remember before starting Exchange. You must have this in mind. Now, so here on this slide, it talks about domain. Domain has all the objects of the in the directory. Now, basically, this information is basically for those people who are new to Exchange, new to Active Directory environment, just to give them a basics on. So domain, we all know that domain has all the objects. Without a domain, Active Directory doesn't exist. Then you have configuration. Configuration information of AD and replication replicates to all the domain in the entire forest. Then you have schema. It's all the object types and attributes that it sits in schema, replicated to domain controller. And then you have application, all specific applications that are application required and replicated to domain controllers. So this is your those partitions. Now comes the Exchange part and Active Directory. So now, guys, as we know that we have this is Exchange 2010. This is Exchange 2010. And Exchange 2010 will store many things in Active Directory. And one of those things, yes.
You said we rarely make changes to schema part.
Yes.
As we are discussing, there are schema only roles, definitions and classes. So what kind of changes we can make in definitions and classes? So what kind of changes they have made?
Yes. So what kind of changes we make? Let's look at this for a second. Guys, the question here is, what changes schema is making to Active Directory? So here, do we know a user property? In user properties, you have first name of user, then you have last name of user, then you have the description, and then you have many tabs here, right? So in this, for now, all the user properties exist, but Exchange attributes are not there. So if I go right in Active Directory at the moment, I can show you that it does not have that. It does have general information, but not. So when Exchange is installed and it does make changes to schema, what it does, it goes add the Exchange tabs here. So it will add Exchange tabs, and Exchange tabs has information of how big is your mailbox size and what is the location of your mailbox size and all that information. This is why Exchange needs to make changes to schema, because Exchange is adding many new attributes to this structure. So which means the existing structure is like this. The existing schema structure is that there is a user object, and user object has first name, and then this has last name, and this has description, and so on, telephone number, address, department, and everything. And when Exchange is added, it will go add more attributes to this. It says, okay, so now you have email address, you now have email size, and this. So to the same object class, it is adding more attributes. This is what schema is doing. Okay.
Just last question.
Yes.
It's not recommended that we have infrastructure master role
On with GC. Yes.
What's the basic reason of that?
Okay. So guys, one question. The question is, it's not recommended, which means it can be done, right? It's not recommended to have infrastructure master role where on a server where you have a GC. So guys, the reason here is that what is the main purpose of infrastructure? Anybody knows?
It traces changes made in the objects in the domain.
Not just objects. It traces, it manages memberships of groups, actually. So the main purpose of infrastructure master is for groups relationship management. How many users are sitting in what groups, and which group has links to wherever. So basically, infrastructure master is mainly responsible for group relationships. One user can be part of 50 groups, and one group can have 5,000 users. So it has many to many relationship. Now GC also have kind of a similar information. It also has group relationships. It also have, and not only basically it has for the other domains. So Microsoft says that if you can separate infrastructure master role from GC, they're not saying that completely separate. Don't put it there. No, they're saying that if possible, keep them separate. But nowadays, guys, it's not possible. Nowadays, this was recommendation long time back. I mean, even in books in 2012 it is written, yes. But now it is not possible. You must have GC in all of them. So it is a recommendation. The only thing is, because it has similar type of information, this has similar type of information, but when that change occurs, it has to be done here and here as well. So they just recommended to keep them separate, but nowadays it's not possible. Okay?
How do we separate out a partition?
No. So you won't separate out a partition, but you can move this Figma roles to another server that is not a GC, right?
That's GC server. This is role, right?
Yes, this is a partition. But you can move this role to another DC that is not a GC. So nowadays, guys, Exchange is one of those components, is one of those servers that cannot live without a GC. So if you have Exchange in the environment, you must have all GCs. This is a hardcore requirement for Exchange. Exchange, there are many components in Exchange. Later on, we're going to find out that cannot live without a GC, because GC decides many things for Exchange. So for that reason, nowadays this recommendation cannot be followed. Okay, so guys, here now let's talk about this. So how Exchange Server uses Active Directory? How Exchange Server uses Active Directory? If you look closely in this, here it shows you on this side we see all the Active Directory objects. So you have forest, schema, configuration, domains, and global catalog. Guys, Exchange has equivalent objects, and this is what is stored in. So forest is equal to Exchange organization. So just like there is a complete forest of Active Directory, Exchange has the topmost level object that is known as Exchange organization. So Exchange has, just like in SCCM, it is CAS. It was CAS in SCCM, or primary site server in SCCM. And exactly like that, in Exchange, the topmost level object. So here I'm going to say this is Exchange organization. Exchange. So Exchange organization is the topmost object of Exchange. And once you create your first Exchange, once you install your first Exchange, it will ask you for the name of the Exchange organization. Now, Exchange organization name will be anything that, for example, Roger can call it Rogers Exchange, Bell can call it Bell Exchange, Kenneth will call it Kenneth's Exchange. It is just the topmost object from where all your hierarchy starts. So it is now one thing important to remember is, in one forest there can be only one organization, Exchange organization. In one forest there cannot be two Exchange organizations. If you ever need to change the name of Exchange organization, you can't change it. You'll have to reinstall it. Just like the site codes in SCCM. Site code in SCCM, once they are assigned to one site, they cannot be changed. You must reinstall complete SCCM and then change the code. So Exchange organization. And Exchange organization and forest has one-to-one relationship. So remember this. So forest, there can be only one forest in one Exchange organization, and there can be, so if you need two Exchange organization, you must create a second forest. So that's the topmost object. Second one is all Exchange objects and classes are stored in schema. This makes sense. So all Exchange objects and classes. So here you have schema. On this side, you have schema. And since schema stores the objects and classes of Active Directory, it will store the object and classes of all Exchange as well. So all Exchange objects and classes. So what is Exchange objects and classes? Exchange objects and classes are this here. You can remember this, that it adds the definitions of other attributes to the user. To the user, that is known as that it is adding. So all Exchange objects and class. And this is done only the first time. This is done. This change will be done only the first time here. And then next, Exchange configuration is stored in configuration partition. So you have Exchange configuration, so configuration partition. Then you have Exchange recipients, configuration. Then you have domain, and then you have GC. So here in configuration, you have Exchange configuration. What is an Exchange configuration? How many Exchange servers are there? How many Exchange servers are there? And then how they are connected with each other, how they are doing mail transport with each other. So basically all those configuration, so this is how many Exchange servers are there, how many Exchange servers, how are they connected? How are they connected? In domain, you have all the Exchange recipient information. So here, domain, you have all Exchange recipient. Now, what is Exchange recipient? Guys, any user with a mailbox is known as Exchange recipient. So if a user exists in Active Directory, and does not have a mailbox, that is not known as recipient. Exchange recipient is any user that has mailbox, that has an email address. So you have all these users, and only this user has email address from Exchange. So this is Exchange recipient. Whereas all other users are just users of Active Directory, they are not Exchange recipients. So we can remember this, that all users with mailboxes in Exchange. This is all users with mailbox in Exchange. All users with mailbox in Exchange. And the last one here is Exchange object attributes with mail-enabled mailboxes and enabled mailbox-enabled clients. So all other objects are stored in global catalog. All other objects are stored in global catalog. So Exchange object attributes for mail-enabled clients. So Exchange objects attributes for mail-enabled clients are stored in GC. Now, what is a mail-enabled client? What is a mail-enabled client or mailbox-enabled object? So this is here, mail-enabled client or mailbox.
Somebody who can send and receive.
Yes, mailbox.
Okay.
So guys, here, so there are three types of mailboxes. There are three types of mailboxes exist in Exchange. One is, there are three types of mailboxes. So this is your Exchange server here. Later on, I'm going to go into more detail in this, but just for understanding what is mailbox enabled and what is mailbox enabled objects here. Mail enabled. So here you have an Exchange server. Right, Exchange server, and right after this, I'm going to go into a full structure of Exchange server, what is required, how does it work, and all that. So for now, Exchange, the main purpose of Exchange is, Main purpose of Exchange is to provide you a mailbox. So here you would have mailboxes for users. So this is a mailbox of a user. Now, main purpose of Exchange is not to provide you a user account. Whose responsibility is to provide you a user account? Active Directory. So basically, here in NTDS you have user accounts, but in Exchange it has mailboxes. So these users are actually linked to this mailbox. Guys, when the user has a user exists in Active Directory and has a mailbox, this is known as Exchange recipient. This is known as Exchange recipient. But guys, let's say I want to register my Hotmail address in Exchange. I'm saying, you know what, don't give me a mailbox, but register my Hotmail or Gmail address in this. That is known as mail-enabled user. For example, I'm a user here. Let's say, mostly this happens with contractors or consultants who are there for maybe 1 or 2 days. And if a contractor or consultant is there for a week, some organization won't allow them to create email account, user accounts in Active Directory or email accounts. So what they do is, let's say a temporary person comes in here. First of all, you will create a user account. Now, as soon as the user account is created, the very next question is, should this user be given email address from your account? Because email address from your account represents that you're a legit user of that company. For example, if you're in Rogers, your email address will be rogers.com or bell.com. But the company is saying, no, this is a temporary user who is here for 3 days. Why should we give him email address? So what they do is, instead of giving mailbox in a company, they're saying, okay, so if you have a Gmail account, let me register in Exchange. This is known as, this guy is a mail-enabled client. So you don't need to give him a mailbox, use his own mailbox. Now the reason why you want to register his Gmail into your company, the reason is so that people can send him emails. If this user is not registered in your Exchange, then what happens is, this user, for example, Nasir here, Nasir has a Gmail account. And Nasir's Gmail account, and he's working with a team of 100 people. And 100 people are all over a different city. So there are only 2 ways to send him emails. How many ways? 2 ways to send him emails. One is that Nasir one by one gave his email address to all of you. And second is, register his email in Exchange so that they can find him in Exchange. So this is why sometimes you need to register external email addresses in Exchange, and you're not giving him email address because he's temporary in the company. So these are these type of accounts. So you have Gmail accounts, you will have Hotmail accounts, you have Yahoo accounts, you have all those accounts. These all accounts come into this category, which is known as mail-enabled user or mail. Now this type of information is stored in GC. This is why you need to have GC in your Exchange. So GC stores user extra email addresses. Now, most of the companies won't encourage this practice. Won't. Why? Because they don't want to have different Gmail, different accounts other than your company account. Because why should they manage your other accounts? So most of the companies won't encourage this. They would ask them. Their best would be not to register their email addresses. So if Nasir is here, Nasir is responsible for his own email address and giving it to people. But your company is not. But sometimes when consultants keeps on coming back and going out, so company register them as mail-enabled accounts. It depends on the project. But this type of accounts would create. I mean, you created an account for one user and he's not even there now. He's gone. So this can create a lot of huge number of those accounts that are unusable, not active, not working, but they're taking space in your servers. Yes.
But you still have to create that user in Active Directory.
Oh yes. I mean, yes, you must create that user in Active Directory. You have to create it. Or so one account is mail-enabled client, and mailbox enabled objects. So this is category where you must create a user account and then register his Gmail address. Guys, the last one is don't even create an account, just register his email address. That is known as contact. So this is a contact. This is a contact where you don't have his account even in Active Directory. So later on, don't worry about this for now. I just gave you these examples just to understand what is this type of information. Just a quick reviewer, guys. Just a quick reviewer. Today we are going through Exchange 2010, and Exchange 2010 is a very important component for many organizations. And Exchange 2010 heavily relies on Active Directory. If Active Directory has any issues, Exchange won't work. So Exchange is one of those products that heavily rely. And Exchange, guys, with Exchange, always remember it is a mission critical application. Mission critical. Now, mission critical application is a medal given to only those applications that can affect your revenue. If Exchange goes down at any point in any organization, that can be a showstopper for many departments in your company. So mission critical, not every application is mission critical. Do you think SCCM is mission critical? SCCM is not mission critical. SCCM is just you can say it's kind of a luxury that you can use on the side. But Exchange is a mission critical application. Once you have mailboxes in there, if this mailbox goes down, that person's completely work is stopped. He cannot send email, cannot receive email, and everything is stopped. Yes.
But there could be applications within SCCM that are mission critical.
None of them. So based on books, based on just technical infrastructure, it is not considered as mission critical. Oracle is considered as mission critical. Oracle, where your many billing applications are connected to Oracle. SQL, somewhere it is, some places it is considered as mission critical, depending on, for example, in hospitals, your patient's records are stored in either Oracle or in SQL, depending on how they. So those applications are mission critical. So this is why SCCM is not a mission. If SCCM is down now, it won't affect your running environment. The only thing it is affecting is you won't be able to deploy, and you're not deploying every day. You won't be able to install patches. You can do that manually as well. And it's not effective. So this is why SCCM is not considered as mission critical. Now Exchange is a mission critical application. Exchange. So just few more minutes and then we're going to go for a break. But here, guys, just a quick reviewer. Active Directory structure, this much you need to understand. But especially for people sitting here in this class, you need to have a very good understanding of Active Directory. So before the next week, guys, review 410, 411, 412. Just review it. Reviewing means you don't have to remember it. It's not a test of remembering. It's just reviewing that information. Just go through major concepts and go through them. And here, Exchange is sitting there. Now, Exchange objects are stored in Active Directory in these different places. So first of all, the topmost level of Exchange is Exchange organization. What is the topmost level? Exchange organization. And Exchange organization has one-to-one relationship with Forest. One Exchange organization, one Forest. One Forest, one Exchange. Secondly, in schema, Exchange stores its objects and destination classes. Third, there is configuration. How many Exchange servers are there? So there are 2 Exchange servers. It is stored in Exchange in configuration. In Active Directory configuration, you add more Exchange servers. Their structure is stored in configuration. If configuration partition is down, for any reason, you cannot add any domain controller, you cannot add a new Exchange server. So this is how these will affect your environment. For example, if your domain partition is down, then you will be able to actually change schema, you will be able to change configuration, but you won't be able to work with recipient. And what is the definition of recipient? Yes, people with mailboxes in Exchange. A user that does not have a mailbox is not considered as a recipient. Recipient is only those persons that have mailboxes in Exchange. So would a person with Yahoo mailbox registered in Exchange considered as recipient? No. That would be just a mail-enabled object. It has mail address, but it's not considered as Exchange recipient. Okay. Okay, just 2 more slides here. So now the second thing is Exchange heavily relies on these records in DNS. Now in DNS, if we remember, in DNS there are many different type of records there. There are many different type of records. So this is your, let's say, a DNS server. Let's quickly see a DNS server. So a DNS server. Now what is in a DNS server? What is in a DNS server? Guys, in a DNS server, basically, always remember, DNS server is just a list of names and IP addresses. It does nothing else. It is a list of names and IP address where people go and ask DNS, okay, can you translate this name to an IP address? Can you translate? Now, whenever the word DNS comes, always here. Always remember that here, this is just a list. This is just a list of names, machine name, its type of record, and its IP address. That is what DNS is. So in DNS, you will see, let's say, CANEPS TC1, and it is a record, and IP address is 192.168.100.99. And same goes here, second name, type, IP address, second, third name. So this is what DNS is. DNS is nothing more than this. Nothing more than this. And there are some names for this list. The list name is zone. This is known as zone. So whenever we, in real environment or in real life, we consider zone as a place or a location where something exists. Guys, in DNS, zone is just that list that has the name and IP address. That's it. If you can remember this simple understanding, you will never forget DNS. So here, DNS is just list. It is a zone. And zones we already know. Zones can be primary zones. Actually, zone can be a forward lookup zone. Forward lookup zone or reverse lookup zone. It can be reverse lookup zone. It can be forward lookup zone. And these all zones can be primary. They can be secondary. They can be stub. They can be stub zones. So this is you already know about you question.
No, I'm just remembering all this.
Okay. So here this is forward lookup zone primary, and primary zone can be integrated or standard zones. Now the only thing we need to remember, guys, so in DNS. So DNS is just that list that has names and IP address, right? It has a list. So you would ask DNS, then I have this name, translate IP address. So DNS would go into its lists and translate. Guys, the good thing you need to know about DNS. The best thing about DNS is it's on auto management. It does most of its management automatically. You will rarely have to do anything in DNS. So it is making records. It is also scavenging records. It is deleting records. It is cleaning up DNS as well. It is doing their own. But guys, now this is basics of DNS. But for Exchange, as being an Exchange admin, you need to remember these records in Exchange. Now what is this? First of all, we know that there are many types of records in DNS, right? So there is records in DNS. Records in DNS. What type of records? Number one, a host record, quad host record, and then you have a pointer record, PRT record. Then you have CNAMEs. Then you have MX record. Then you have SRV record. So these are all types of record. But there is NS record as well. And there is SOA record. So this is a host record. So these are all of the records that exist. But guys, Few records that Exchange cannot live without. Number one is SRV record. SRV record. So SRV record is very important for Exchange. SRV record is very important for Exchange. And second record is MX record. So before SRV record, it is A host record is important for Exchange, SRV record is important for Exchange, and MX record is important for Exchange. MX. Now, why are these records important for Exchange? Why are these records important for Exchange? Guys, first one, A host record. A host record is automatically registered for Exchange. As soon as you create this server, A host record will be created for all these, right? So A host record is automatically created. We don't need to do anything. So this is actually the Exchange record itself. This is Exchange server record itself. Exchange itself. Secondly, you have SRV record. Guys, SRV record basically it is the domain locator, right? It is for domain controller. So every time when Exchange starts, or every time a mailbox connects to a user connects to mailbox. So let's look at this. A user is connecting to its mailbox. User connecting to the mailbox, SRV record is required. Every time when Exchange starts, it needs to go to SRV record and do the authentication. Now, why SRV record required for Exchange? Why SRV record required? So here, look at this. User, his mailbox sitting in Exchange. Here, this is Exchange server. User needs to go here. So the very first thing Exchange needs to make sure, because privacy is the top priority, privacy. So none other user, so for example, this is the second user, this user should not have any access to this mailbox because this is owned by this user. So the very first thing when a user tries to access a mailbox, it does authentication. So user, when it is trying to access right here, Exchange will say, okay, so you're trying to access this, let me go to a domain controller and verify your username and password. So exactly, this is where Exchange says to user, okay, wait, let me check your identity. And at this point, this Exchange server will use the SRV record in DNS and will connect to DC, sends the username and password. As soon as it is verified, user will be given access. So it is here every time when Exchange needs to get authentication done. So guys, this is where SRV records are required. And last one is the Exchange MX record. This is specially for Exchange itself. This is for Exchange server when need to receive email from external Exchange. MX record. MX record is only required when your Exchange needs to connect to external Exchange. MX record is only required when your Exchange needs to connect to external Exchange. Now, example is,
What is external exchange?
yes, external Exchange is any other company's Exchange. So this is your,
As in like a sister company, or like if I am working for, let's say,
Any
Honda
company.
and I'm sending
exactly. So any sister company or any other company. So this is your Exchange environment here, your Exchange server, and this is your Active Directory. It's working here. Now this is, let's say this is Rogers, and now there is this other company, let's say this is Bell, and you need to send out emails to this Exchange environment. So when emails need to be sent to other exchange or need to be received, MX record is required. If your company is not sending and receiving from outside, you don't need MX record. So MX record is only required. So this is what it is said. Exchange server, this is for Exchange server when need to receive, send or receive. Here we can say receive or send emails from or to external Exchange servers. From or to. So MX record, so this is from or to. From or to. Now later on we're gonna shed more light on this, that how do you configure MX record? How does it work? But at this point, I just want you to remember the simple thing. And that simple thing is that MX record is only required when you need to talk to other Exchange systems. If you are sitting in a test environment and you don't need to send and receive from outside, MX record is not required. MX record is not even used. So MX record will only be used when you are connecting to other Exchange systems. And how do you connect to them? Later on, at the end, we're going to do a project on this. We're going to create 2 Exchange organizations, and we're going to send and receive between 2. So at that point, you're going to need MX record. But here, you don't need any MX record. But here, you must remember MX record. So do you think that all organizations out there have MX records? Yes, all of them are using MX record. So let's say, how many MX record do they need? They need only 1 MX record, 1 or maximum 2 or 3 MX record. So depending on, so guys, we already know that IT companies can be small, they can be medium size with 2 branches, and they can be large environments. So they can be large. Now here, they might not even need a MX record if this organization is not sending and receiving outside. But if they do, they just need 1 MX record. For example, in Canef, when I receive email on canef.com, I just need 1 MX record to send and receive. Now here, medium-sized organizations, they might have 1 or 2 MX records, just for redundancy purposes. If one goes down, second one should be available. Large organizations, they might have 5 to 10 MX records. Large organization. You don't need more than this. So Rogers might have maybe 5 or 6 MX records. Bell might have 10, 5, 6, 7, 8. But guys, Gmail is a company that is based on emails. So this has maybe hundreds of MX records. Why? Because they have emailing system in all countries. For Canada, they might have 10 records. US, maybe 5, 10 records. For Pakistan, 5, 10 records. India, 5, 10 records. So since it is a global, it's huge. So MX record. Just remember this. MX records are used to send and receive email from external. In one environment, you don't need MX record. So guys, a quick reviewer here is, we were discussing that Exchange relies on these records. A host record, which is automatically generated by DNS. SRV record, which points to a domain controller for authentication. And third one, MX record, which is for external email transfer.
So there will be only 1 A host record for 1 exchange.
There will be
Only 1 A host record.
Yes, each Exchange server has 1 A host record. So here we're going to have 3 Exchange server, so there will be 3 A host records.
And about the MX,
Huh?
About the MX records, it is, does it only require between Exchange servers, or let's say if we are sending an email from Hotmail or Gmail, that is not.
It is required. It is. Whenever 2 emailing systems talk to each other, you need MX record. Whenever 2. It can be from your Exchange to Gmail, from Gmail to your Exchange, from Yahoo Mail, Hotmail, they all need MX records. And there is a way to verify how you verify this. So guys, with this, let's take up.
But it's Exchange to Exchange.
Yes, Exchange to Exchange. If it is internal, you don't need MX record. If it is as soon as it touches the internet, you need MX record.
Even if it's Exchange to
A sister company?
Mail-enabled clients?
Yes, 100%. As soon as it connects to the external exchange.
So Canvas.com to another Canvas.com, you don't need it.
Canvas.com to another
Canvas.com.
you don't need it. No. As long as they're both the same company. If they're two different companies, then basically you can have two same name for two different companies. They must have some variation in names. Okay. So guys, with this, let's have a quick break. Guys, here we are very tight on schedule, so make sure you're back in 20 minutes here. 20 minutes maximum. I'm gonna start if you're here or not, and if you miss, you can see that you're gonna miss a lot here. This cannot be repeated. Because 20 is fine. Just go now, whatever you need to do, and in 20 minutes we're back. Yes. Guys, whoever is going out, please go out quick and come back. And whoever needs to pray, please. आप बहुत लंबा वीडियो करते हैं. Please, जल्दी कर लिया करें.
Oh, it's free water.
Thank you.